Ladies and gentlemen, today we step into a subject that has been whispered about, wrapped in mystery, and often misunderstood. Female desire. For centuries, society has painted it in narrow strokes, either reducing it to something simple and fragile, or exaggerating it into something too complex to ever be understood. But here's the truth. Women's desires are not a riddle without an answer. They are layered, yes. They are nuanced, absolutely. But they are also profoundly human. And today, I want to share with you 5 secrets of female desires that few ever speak of, not because they are forbidden, but because many people never take the time to truly listen. The first secret is that female desire is not linear. It is not a straight line that begins with attraction and ends with intimacy. Instead, it ebbs and flows. It can surge in a moment of laughter, spark in a conversation, or appear quietly in the safety of trust. Unlike the rigid scripts often written about what women want, the truth is that desire can emerge in unexpected ways. A woman might feel most alive not in the dramatic gestures of romance, but in the small, almost invisible acts of being seen. When someone remembers the detail of her favorite tea, or when her thoughts are not dismissed but valued, that is where desire begins to take root. It is not a single spark, it is a rhythm, and when we understand this rhythm, we understand that desire is less about the physical and more about the feeling of being noticed, honored, and understood. The second secret is that female desire thrives on safety. Not safety in the sense of protection from danger, though that is certainly important, but safety in the sense of emotional freedom. Women desire the ability to unfold without fear of judgment, the freedom to speak, to reveal, to express themselves without worrying that their thoughts will be belittled or their feelings dismissed. Desire grows where trust lives. If a woman feels that she can be her full self, unmasked and unapologetic, then desire can breathe. And it is often misunderstood that this safety somehow dulls passion. In reality, it does the opposite. It gives passion permission. It gives intimacy wings. Because when someone feels safe, they no longer guard themselves, and that vulnerability is the birthplace of real connection. The third secret is that female desire is both physical and intellectual. Society often tries to confine it to beauty, to bodies, to appearances. But women are not moved only by what is seen. They are moved by what is said, by the way words shape worlds, by the play of wit and intelligence. A woman can find herself pulled towards someone who challenges her mind, who makes her laugh, who engages her curiosity. This is not to say that physical attraction does not matter. Of course it does, but it is incomplete on its own. For many women, desire is not just what is touched on the outside, but what is stirred on the inside. A good conversation can be as intoxicating as a kiss. A spark of wit can be as magnetic as a touch. The secret here is that women often want to be seen not just as bodies to admire, but as minds to engage, and when both are met, desire becomes powerful and lasting. The fourth secret is that female desire is deeply connected to self-worth. This is not often spoken of because it requires honesty about how the world treats women. Too often, women are taught to shrink, to be smaller, to apologize for wanting more. But desire cannot bloom in shame. When a woman feels valued, when she feels that her existence is not something to hide or explain, her desire strengthens. It is not about arrogance and it is not about ego. It is about being allowed to be whole. Many women desire not only to be loved, but to be recognized in their fullness, ambitions, flaws, brilliance, and all. When this recognition happens, when she feels worthy and celebrated, her desire does not merely awaken, it thrives. And this is a truth too often hidden, that for many women, Their deepest desires are entwined with their sense of being enough, exactly as they are. The fifth and final secret is that female desire is not static. It changes, it grows, it evolves. What a woman desires at 20 may not be what she desires at 40. Her desires shift with her seasons, with her experiences, with her growth. To ignore this is to misunderstand the very nature of being alive. Many believe that desire is a fixed formula, something you discover once and apply forever. But for women, as for all humans, desire is a living thing. It adapts to her journey, to her challenges, to her triumphs. And that is what makes it so beautiful. It cannot be captured in a single sentence or confined to a single role. It is ever changing, ever teaching, ever surprising. And those who are willing to grow alongside it, to remain curious and attentive, are those who unlock its richest rewards. So, here we are, at the end of these 5 secrets. What do they tell us? That female desire is not something to be reduced or oversimplified. It is not a mystery too complicated to solve. It is instead a song with many verses, a story with many chapters. It lives in rhythms, in safety, in intellect, in worth, and in change. And perhaps the greatest truth of all is this: when we stop trying to control it, when we stop trying to define it for women, and instead allow women to define it for themselves, we discover that desire is not something to fear or silence. It is something to honor. It is a mirror of freedom, a reflection of humanity, and one of the purest expressions of being alive. If we lean closer to the truth of desire, we see that it is not only about what women want, but also about how the world has conditioned them to silence those wants. For centuries, women have been told to hold their longings like secrets in the folds of their hearts, to never reveal too much, to never risk being called selfish, demanding, or inappropriate. But this silence has created misunderstandings, not only between women and men, but between women and themselves. When we name these truths, when we say out loud what has long been hidden, we do not weaken the beauty of desire, we strengthen it, because the power of desire is not only in feeling it, but in owning it without shame. Think about how often women are given contradictory messages. They are told to be desirable, but not too desiring. They are expected to inspire passion, but not to claim passion for themselves. They are praised for being objects of longing, but discouraged from expressing longing in return. And this contradiction is exhausting. It places women in a cage of expectations, where desire becomes something to perform rather than something to live. The truth, however, is that real desire cannot be scripted. It cannot be manufactured to fit cultural standards. It is authentic only when it arises from within, free from fear of how it will be judged. Another unspoken truth is that women's desires are deeply tied to imagination. Desire does not always depend on reality. Sometimes it thrives in fantasy. A woman may desire a story, a possibility, a vision of what could be, just as much as what is. And this does not make her fickle or unrealistic. It makes her human. The ability to dream is part of the ability to desire. When women read novels, watch films, or listen to music, they are often seeking not just entertainment, but a mirror for their inner longings. They are searching for spaces where their desires can breathe without apology. The imagination gives women permission to explore what they cannot always express in words, and in those hidden places, they often discover themselves more deeply. It is also important to understand that desire is not always about possession. Too often, we confuse wanting with needing to own. But for many women, desire is about experience, about savoring a moment, about connection without necessarily holding on forever. Sometimes desire is fleeting, a spark that lights the dark for only a moment, and that is enough. Other times, it becomes a steady flame, lasting for years, even decades. To judge either as better or worse is to miss the point. The point is that desire has its own timing, its own rhythm, and when we accept that, we stop forcing women into molds of what their longing should look like. We also cannot ignore the role of the body in all of this. A woman's relationship with her body influences her desires more than most people realize. If she has been taught to see her body as flawed, as something to criticize, her desires often shrink. But if she learns to embrace her body as it is, not as the world demands it to be, then desire flourishes. This is why self-acceptance is not just an act of self-love, it is also an act of liberation. It frees desire from shame. It says, I am enough and my longings are valid. And when a woman reaches this place, she is no longer waiting for the world to tell her she is worthy of wanting. She simply knows. Yet we must acknowledge that desire does not exist in isolation. It is shaped by culture, by upbringing, by relationships, by the roles women are asked to play. A woman raised to silence her voice may find it harder to express her wants. A woman raised to believe her worth depends on others may struggle to claim her needs. These forces do not erase her desires, but they can bury them so deep that even she forgets where they live. The journey of uncovering them can be long, but it is never too late. Desire is patient. It waits for recognition. And when it is finally acknowledged, it can be more powerful than ever before. Let us also speak of pleasure. Pleasure is often treated as if it were separate from desire. But in truth, the two are intertwined. Pleasure feeds desire, and desire seeks pleasure. Yet, for many women, the pursuit of pleasure is shrouded in guilt. They are told it is indulgent, unnecessary, even wrong. But pleasure is not trivial, it is life-affirming. It reminds us that we are alive, that our senses are gifts, that our bodies are not only vehicles of survival, but instruments of joy. When a woman claims her right to pleasure, she is not only claiming a personal victory, she is reclaiming something generations have been told to deny. And with that reclamation, her desire becomes stronger, more unapologetic, more alive. The silence around female desire is not only cultural, it is also personal. Families rarely speak of it. Friends may laugh about it, but often in half-truths and jokes. Schools avoid it, and media distorts it. So, where are women meant to learn the truth about their own longings? Often, they learn through experience, through trial and error, through heartbreak and discovery. But what if, instead of being left to stumble in the dark, women were given permission from the beginning to explore their desires openly, honestly, and without shame? Imagine how much freer, how much more confident, how much more fulfilled they could be. And imagine how much healthier our relationships would become when desire is not hidden but honored. There is another secret, one that often goes unspoken. Female desire is not only about intimacy with others, but also about intimacy with oneself. A woman who knows how to sit with her own company, who can find joy in her own thoughts, who can cultivate her own pleasures, is a woman who is truly free. Her desires are not born from emptiness, but from fullness. She does not seek another to complete her, but to complement her. This self-intimacy is perhaps the most overlooked aspect of female desire. And yet it is the foundation upon which all other desires are built. Without it, desires can feel like cravings born from lack. With it, they feel like celebrations born from abundance. And finally, we must acknowledge that desire carries power. To desire is to admit that you want, and in a world that has often told women not to want too much, this is revolutionary. It is radical to say, I long for this, I hunger for this, I deserve this. Whether that longing is for love, for touch, for freedom, for respect, or for pleasure, it is an act of courage to claim it. And that courage is contagious. When one woman speaks her truth, others feel the permission to do the same. Slowly, silently, then loudly, desire begins to change not only personal lives, but entire cultures. So, when we talk about the secrets of female desires, what we are truly talking about is humanity itself. We are talking about the courage to claim joy, the right to safety, the beauty of imagination, the power of self, worth, and the ever-changing nature of what it means to be alive. These secrets are not meant to remain secrets. They are meant to be spoken, lived, and shared. Because when they are, desire ceases to be a puzzle we try to solve and becomes instead a truth we finally learn to embrace. When we strip away the stereotypes, another layer reveals itself. Female desire is not only about intimacy, not only about longing, but about freedom of expression in all forms. A woman may desire adventure, to step outside her comfort zone, to feel the rush of discovering something unknown. This could be travel, it could be learning, it could be taking risks that others warned her against. For many women, the thrill of desire is not only about the body or the heart, but about the spirit daring to stretch beyond boundaries. That sense of possibility can feel intoxicating because it means she is alive in every sense, claiming her right to grow, to seek, to want more than what she has been told is enough. So much of what we call desire is linked to energy. The energy exchanged between two people, the energy a woman feels when she is inspired, the energy of creativity and passion. Some women find their desires heightened when they are creating something, writing, painting, dancing, building, cooking, shaping. The act of creating brings them closer to their own vitality, and that vitality spills into other areas of their lives. In this sense, desire is not separate from creativity. They feed each other. To live a life that suppresses desire is to also risk suppressing creativity, because both draw from the same well of life force. And when that well is honored, a woman finds herself more open, more present, more daring. We also need to recognize that female desire often carries layers of contradiction. A woman may desire closeness and independence at the same time. She may long for stability while also craving excitement. She may want tenderness one moment and intensity the next. These contradictions are not signs of confusion or inconsistency. They are signs of depth. They reflect the truth that human beings are never one thing. Women, in particular, have been expected to fit into narrow definitions of who they are supposed to be. But desire refuses to be boxed in. It is expansive, fluid, capable of holding opposites without needing to resolve them. And when we allow space for that complexity, we discover that the contradictions are not obstacles to understanding female desire, but part of its richness. Desire also exists in silence, in pauses, in what is unspoken. Many women do not express their desires directly because they have learned that to do so might bring judgment or rejection. But if you pay attention, desire can be felt in gestures, in the way she lingers on a subject, in the way her eyes brighten, in the small details she shares when she feels safe enough. Silence does not mean absence of desire. Silence often means there is more than words can carry. And this silence is not emptiness. It is full of meaning for those willing to listen with more than their ears. Women's desires often speak in subtler languages, and learning to hear them requires patience, presence, and respect. Another dimension rarely discussed is how collective history shapes personal longing. Women have carried generations of restrictions on their shoulders, and those restrictions influence how they relate to desire today. A grandmother who never had the chance to choose for herself may pass down unspoken lessons to her granddaughter. A mother who silenced her own desires for the sake of duty may unconsciously teach her daughter to do the same. These inherited silences form part of the fabric of women's experiences, and yet every act of claiming desire is also an act of breaking that inheritance. Each time a woman allows herself to want openly, she is not only living for herself, but rewriting the story for those who came before and those who will come after. Desire also has seasons. There are times in a woman's life when her energy is directed outward, when her longings are vibrant and visible. And there are times when her desires turn inward, when she seeks solitude, when she desires rest, peace, and stillness. Both are valid, both are necessary. Too often, only the fiery side of desire is celebrated, while the quieter side is overlooked. But the desire to rest, to retreat, to replenish is as powerful as the desire to pursue and to connect. It is in those quieter seasons that many women rediscover themselves, so that when passion calls again, they answer with renewed strength. The way society responds to female desire also influences how women experience it. When a woman expresses her longings and is met with ridicule or dismissal, she may retreat. When she is met with curiosity, encouragement, or respect, her desires grow. This shows us that desire is not only a personal matter, but a relational one. It thrives or withers depending on the soil it is planted in. A culture that shames women for wanting will always create women who struggle with guilt about their desires. A culture that celebrates their right to want will create women who are unafraid to claim joy, to claim connection, to claim more from life. The responsibility, then, is collective. How we respond to women's desires determines how freely those desires can be lived. There is also the truth that desire changes with confidence. Many women discover new layers of longing as they grow older, not because they suddenly developed new needs, but because they finally allowed themselves to acknowledge what was always there. Confidence is the key that unlocks hidden rooms of desire. A young woman might hesitate to say what she wants, fearing rejection or shame, while a woman who has grown into her own voice may state her desires clearly and without apology. This is why age can be a gift. With each year, the mask of expectation grows thinner, and what remains is the unfiltered truth of what she longs for. Desire deepens with courage, and courage grows with experience. Sometimes desire is misunderstood as selfishness, but selfishness is taking without regard for others, while desire is about connection, about aliveness, about truth. When women are taught to see their desires as selfish, they learn to minimize themselves. But when they are taught to see their desires as sacred, as part of their humanity, they learn to honor themselves. And in honoring themselves, they often create healthier, more honest connections with those around them. The irony is that when a woman embraces her own desires, she often becomes more present, more giving, because she is no longer pouring from emptiness. She is sharing from a place of fullness. We cannot speak of female desire without acknowledging resilience. Women have carried their desires through centuries of silence, through cultures that tried to suppress them, through personal struggles that tried to erase them. And yet, desire survives. It waits patiently. It adapts. It whispers in dreams, in fantasies, in the smallest sparks of curiosity. That resilience is itself a secret worth naming. Female desire is not fragile. It is enduring. It cannot be erased by shame, by silence, by repression. It may be hidden, it may be quiet, but it always finds a way to rise again because it is part of what it means to be alive. And finally, let us remember that desire is not something that belongs to one gender or one group. Desire is a shared human truth. But when we take the time to uncover the unique ways it moves through women's lives, we honor a truth that has too long been ignored. We begin to understand not just women more deeply, but humanity itself. Because to know what a woman desires is to know how she sees the world, how she wants to live, how she chooses to love, and how she dares to dream. There is something essential we must explore when we talk about desire, the way it is often disguised. Many women learn to cloak their longings beneath acceptable labels. They say they want stability, when what they crave is adventure. They say they want companionship, when what they ache for is passion. They ask for respect when what they hunger for is to be adored. This disguise is not dishonesty, but protection. Protection from being judged, from being called greedy, from being told that their desires are too much. But beneath those disguises, the truth still breathes. A woman's true desires are rarely simple, but they are always honest if you learn to listen past the mask. Consider how many women have been taught to measure themselves against impossible ideals. The magazines, the films, the endless comparisons all tell her what she should look like, how she should behave, what she should want. And yet, beneath that noise, her own voice whispers something different. Her own desires call her toward what feels real, not what is prescribed. This is one of the most important truths. The voice of desire does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it is a whisper, sometimes a flicker, sometimes a feeling she cannot quite put into words. But it is there, waiting to be trusted. And when a woman learns to trust that quiet voice, she begins to align her life not with expectation, but with truth. We also have to acknowledge how desire is shaped by vulnerability. Many women long not just for touch or attention, but for the freedom to be fully seen in their most fragile states. To have someone witness their fears, their doubts, their imperfections, and still say, "You are enough." This is not weakness. This is strength. It takes tremendous courage to reveal the soft parts of oneself, and when that courage is met with acceptance, desire deepens into something unbreakable. For women, intimacy often means more than physical closeness. It means the courage to let someone walk through the doors she usually keeps locked. And when those doors open safely, what flows out is desire in its purest form. There is also a secret in the way desire connects to time. A woman may desire slowly, unfolding layer by layer, allowing attraction to build like a steady fire. Or she may desire suddenly, all at once, in a lightning strike that cannot be explained. Both are true, both are valid. But too often, women are told that their desire must fit one model: polite, gradual, restrained. Anything outside of that is seen as excessive or wrong. But desire does not owe the world predictability. It owes only truth to the woman who feels it. And when she gives herself permission to follow the pace of her own desire, whether slow or immediate, she honors herself fully. Think also about the way women often carry unspoken longings for connection that transcends the physical. The desire to be understood without explanation, the desire to share silence without awkwardness, the desire to belong, not as someone's possession, but as someone's equal. These desires may not always make headlines or appear in glossy depictions of romance, but they are among the deepest. They are the kinds of desires that bring peace, that heal wounds, that make a woman feel safe enough to reveal even greater depths. And yet, they are often overlooked because they do not sparkle with drama, but sometimes the quietest desires are the ones that matter most. Another truth is that women often desire to be pursued, not in the sense of being hunted or conquered, but in the sense of being chosen again and again. To feel that someone sees her, not once, not at the beginning, but continually, throughout the days and years. Desire is not only about the initial spark, it is about sustaining that spark with presence, attention, and intention. Too often, people believe that once love or intimacy begins, the work is done. But for women, desire grows when she feels she is still cherished, still seen, still worth the effort. That ongoing recognition is not a luxury, it is the heartbeat of lasting desire. We cannot ignore the influence of memory. A woman's desires are often colored by the moments that have shaped her. The first time she felt truly beautiful, the first time she was betrayed, the first time she laughed until she cried with someone she loved. These memories linger, and they shape how she desires it. The future desire is not created in a vacuum. It is built on history. And sometimes a woman's present longing is an attempt to heal a past wound, or to recapture a past joy, or to rewrite a story that once caused her pain. Understanding this connection between desire and memory helps us see that her longings are not random. They are part of a larger story she has been writing her whole life. There is also the relationship between desire and power. Many women have been told that to desire power is unfeminine, that ambition and hunger for influence are qualities reserved for men. But in truth, many women desire not only love, but power over their own lives. The power to decide, the power to direct their own futures, the power to step into leadership without apology. This is not separate from romantic or intimate desire. It is connected, because when a woman feels she owns her life, when she feels strong and capable, her desires expand in every direction. She is no longer limited by fear of disapproval. She is free to want more, to ask for more, to create more. And this expansion is part of her wholeness. Desire can also be deeply spiritual. For some women, it is not just about the physical or emotional, but about transcendence. The longing to feel part of something greater, to touch the sacred through connection, through intimacy, through love. Desire in this sense becomes a bridge between the earthly and the divine. It is no longer about one person or one moment, but about the experience of being fully alive in the presence of something larger than herself. This spiritual dimension is often overlooked in conversations about desire, but for many women it is central. Their longing is not only for pleasure, but for meaning, for union, for something that touches the soul as much as the body. And still, desire can be playful. It does not always have to be serious or profound. Women desire laughter, mischief, spontaneity. They desire moments that feel light and unburdened, where joy itself becomes the expression of longing. This playfulness is sometimes dismissed as trivial, but it is vital. Without it, desire can feel heavy or dutiful. With it, desire becomes fresh, surprising, alive. Playfulness reminds us that longing is not always about intensity. Sometimes it is about delight, about the simple joy of being in the presence of someone who makes you smile until your cheeks ache. This, too, is part of the richness of female desire. And finally, we must admit that desire is courageous. It takes courage for a woman to say what she wants, to risk vulnerability, to stand against centuries of silence and expectation. Every act of expressing desire is an act of bravery, because she knows that her words might be misunderstood, her longings might be judged, her truth might not be accepted. And yet she dares to speak, to feel, to want. That courage is what makes desire so powerful. It is not only about longing. It is about daring to honor that longing in a world that often tries to deny it. And that, perhaps, is the deepest secret of all. So here we are, having peeled back the layers, having spoken aloud the truths that are so often left in the shadows. We began with secrets, but as we explored them, it became clear they were never meant to stay hidden. Female desire is not a mystery to be solved. It is not a puzzle too complicated for the world to understand. It is a living, breathing force that changes shape, that resists simplification, that asks to be honored instead of ignored. And when we honor it, we do more than recognize what women want. We recognize what it means to be fully human. The lesson is not simply that women desire differently than men, or that their longings are unique in their expression. The lesson is that women have long been denied the freedom to voice what has always been within them. That denial has been wrapped in culture, in tradition, in shame, in fear. But despite all that, desire has survived. It has whispered through silence. It has burned beneath masks. It has persisted when the world tried to extinguish it. To speak of these desires openly is not only a personal act. It is a collective act of liberation. It tells every woman who has doubted her worth, who has hidden her longings, who has questioned whether she is allowed to want, that she is not alone. What does it mean to truly honor female desire? It means to stop shrinking it, stop trivializing it, stop confining it to roles written by others. It means to let it exist in its contradictions, its playfulness, its intellect, its depth. It means to respect that it changes with time, that it breathes differently in each woman, that it cannot be measured by anyone else's standards. To honor it is to listen when a woman says what she wants, even when it doesn't fit your expectations. To honor it is to create spaces of safety, of trust, of freedom, where her desires can emerge without fear. When we understand this, something extraordinary happens. Relationships grow deeper because they are built on honesty instead of performance. Cultures grow healthier because they stop teaching shame and start celebrating truth. And women grow freer because they no longer have to choose between their desires and their dignity. This is not only about intimacy or romance. This is about life itself, because desire is not only the hunger for another. It is the hunger for freedom, for joy, for meaning, for wholeness. So let us not whisper about it anymore. Let us not keep these truths behind closed doors. Let us speak them, live them, embody them. Let us teach our daughters that their desires are not something to hide, but something to honor. Let us teach our sons that to love a woman is to honor not just her body, but her mind, her worth, her longings. And let us remind ourselves over and over again that to desire is not a weakness but a strength. It is not a flaw but a birthright. Female desire is not a secret to fear. It is a truth to celebrate. And when we finally celebrate it, openly and without apology, we give not only women, but the world, permission to be more fully alive.